Hey, if you caught this part of the video, you caught the live unedited edition. Home Gadget Geeks Thursday night. It's the 11th of November, 2021. It's almost exactly 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone. And if you got this any other time than that, you caught the recorded version of it. It's okay. Hang tight. We're going to get started here in just a second. It'll be a few minutes of pre-show, but stay around. It'll be good. You'll probably learn something with it. If you're joining us for the very first time, there's quite a few of you out there. Jump in the chat room. There's actually a link right down there that'll say join this with chat. Just click on it. It'll take you to the YouTube instance. Sign in with your Google account, and then we'd love to have you there. I'm seeing Joe and Jim. Brian, you're normally in the chat room at this point. You're here tonight. Hey, thanks for coming out. It's good having you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We normally do a beer pour, although both tonight, neither one of us have at least beer to start with. I'm going to end it. But what are you drinking tonight? What do you got? What do you got there?
Yeah, I've got a Bogle, pretty tasty
Nice
wine.
Yeah.
Cab Sav.
Where's it?
Yeah,
Where is it? Is it local? Is it a Phoenix local?
I believe this one's California.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually chose it today. By the way, Happy Veterans Day.
Did you do any military service?
I haven't, okay. But family did, and just think about my father-in-law. He had passed a few years back, and this was one of his favorites. And he's a Korean War veteran, and he would have celebrated a birthday just a couple of days ago. So just remembering him and drinking one of his favorites.
That's great. That's great on a day like this. That's fantastic. My father in Korea as well. And he would have been, let's see, how old would he have been? I guess almost 90, getting pretty close to that. I think somewhere in that range. Yeah, I think that's we lost him. I don't know, 7 years ago. But of course, Veterans Day. We'll talk about that in the show. But wine does. If I drink, that's a red, right? You have a red. You have a cab there. If I drink a wine, it really makes my lips sticky, not like sugary, but just kind of, I don't know, kind of puckery. So I have to avoid wine. I've done it before, but by the end of the show, I am just hoarse. Like it just kind of drives me out. I did a little Blanton's tonight, and I was telling you in the pre-show, Blanton's is kind of one of these hard bourbons to get a hold of. So a little pour, although I'm the only one in the family that drinks it, so it's lasted a long time. And then later in the show, we had this last week, Westo Blueberry Shandy. A great way, what I'm finding, a great way to finish up the show is with like a lighter or like a shandy kind of beer. This is wheat ale with lemon and blueberry. So Westo, I thought this was West Omaha. We have, the west part of town we call West Omaha. West Okoboji. Not quite. We have a big resort town in North Iowa called Okoboji. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be delicious. You got a whole bottle, so I think you're gonna be good.
I'm planning on half of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, you're not going to do the every evening. My daughter and I compete to see who can finish the bottle of wine between the three of us. It works out okay. So. Jim Shoemaker, good to see you. Joe, good to see you. Welcome to you guys that are out there. Mike is off tonight. A work event came his way and he could not make it. So I said, well, I'm having Brian on, so it'll work out just fine. So Brian, thanks for saying yes. How long you been a listener?
Gosh, with this show, I think I want to say around 2016 or 17. Okay. And then I've actually known Mike through podcasting and an endeavor that I used to do with a friend of mine and my brother-in-law, where we kind of did a little podcasting years ago. And I want to say that was 2014, 2015, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you find this through Mike? Did you find Home Gadget Geeks through Mike then?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how'd you find Mike?
Mike, I'm trying to remember on him. I remember it was a kind of an Apple-centric show, and so I think it was probably either connected through that, and or he found us through. We kind of did some stuff with video games and with movies and things of that nature. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just a kid back in those days.
Yeah, I think I want to say he may have been an undergrad. I'm trying to remember. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to. I remember. I can't remember. I think he'd already started law school when I started, or I can't remember either. Isn't it funny how those memories are kind of gone? But
Yeah.
I remember him going through law school, and I'd be like, "Are you sure you can podcast?" Like, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." I'm like, everybody that I've known that went through law school was like, "I can't do anything else." Like, they disappear. But Uyghur
Well,
somehow figured it out.
it's kind of like the show that I was doing with my friends and brother-in-law. It's like, once work got tougher and more hours, I had to give that up. My
Yeah,
brother-in-law still dabbles in it a little bit, but yeah, I just got too busy.
yeah. I just couldn't believe he could do that. I was just like,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
And he keeps showing up. He's got a
Yep.
couple kids, and he won't listen to this part, so I can talk about him. But yeah, he's got a couple kids, and busy life, and he keeps showing up. It's an easy gig for him. He just shows up. It's what I do for Saturday mornings. It's kind of what I do on Ask the Podcast Coach. I just show up. It's pretty easy to do. So, okay,
Yeah.
Brian, let's do this thing. Here we go.
All right.
Thanks for coming again. Hold on. Let's get this over here. Okay. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks, show number 512, recorded on November 11th, 2021. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here. And this is the part where I would say to Mike in a beautiful Bellevue, Nebraska. Mike is out tonight. Our guest host, Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, is with us tonight. Brian, welcome to Home Gadget Geeks. Great to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here.
You're usually in the chat room, faithfully in the chat room. Brian F., if you've ever hung out in our chat room. We have to do the obligatory weather. Beautiful here. We had a bunch of wind. It's getting colder. You're in Phoenix. Does the weather ever change there? I mean, does it ever get cold, or is it just hot all the time?
I think we've got the best weather in the country right now. Actually, we're in the mid to high 80s, and our lows are in the mid to high 50s, low 60s, and it's just gorgeous right now. This is the time. This makes all that 110 degree temperatures worth it.
Yeah, I know you believe that, but I'm a cold weather guy. Today I was out doing a little yard work. I was in shorts. It was 47, and I was like, I love this. Like that for me. It's got to get about 40, maybe in the 30s before I stop kind of wearing shorts out there. But I was like, so I'm a cold weather guy. Apparently you're okay with the warm weather down there in Phoenix.
Yeah, I actually, it's not that I like the hot weather, but I'll take that over the cold.
Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, you've been there, you've lived there your whole life. So not, you like it. It works for some. I don't know why. I just could not and they always say it's a dry heat, right? But I just couldn't. It gets pretty muggy here in Nebraska in the summers, and just really hot and really humid, heat indexes of, 105, 110 with humidity. That's terrible. So I don't know why I'm saying anything about Phoenix, because it just doesn't last as long. We get a couple weeks of it and then it kind of goes away. But
yeah. And if you're indoors and you're, for work, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
The electricity bill isn't fun, but yeah, if you're indoors, just that short walk between the door and your car door, and then a few minutes cooling down your car.
Yeah. Everybody have white cars just for that reason, or it doesn't matter?
I would say there's probably a disproportionate amount of white cars in Phoenix. Yeah.
I'd imagine there's all kinds of trickery that goes into keeping cars cool. Well, hang tight 1 second. Let me get a couple things out of the way. We'll get to know you a little bit. Happy Veterans Day here in the United States. We celebrate that on November 11th. And so big thanks to all those who served. And I would say all those who supported those who served. My wife wished me a happy Veterans Day today, and I said I couldn't do this without you. So there's a lot that goes into that, but a happy Veterans Day to those, and thanks for your service if you've served in the military. And I'd even say around the world, if you've given time, if they've given a part of your life to defend whatever that you need to defend. Happy Veterans Day from that standpoint. Big thanks to Gavin Campbell, who joined us last week. Gavin was great. Just had a good time with him. And so Gavin, thanks for coming on. He'll be back. We'll bring him back sometime after the first of the year. We got some things to talk about with him, but big thanks to Gavin for coming on as well. Brian, let's get to know you a little bit. Just give us a little bit. What do you do? Like, what do you do for a living? What keeps you busy during the day? And then we'll talk a little bit about your tech hobbies.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm a school teacher by trade. I teach students and primarily economics and various other electives. I work at a school that's what they call an alternative charter school. We service students who are 16 years and older, who are they have to be behind in credits to come on board with us. And I'd say I love every day of my job. We've got a lot of good, motivated kids.
That's great to hear. As we were talking pre-show about it, I was like, I never thought about what happens to students who can't graduate in the traditional time frame and who are motivated to. Some aren't. Yeah. Sounds like your students kind of are motivated. Did COVID throw a wrench in your system? And in what ways did it affect it? And is it coming back?
Yeah, certainly. Just like everyone else, many schools that went home and worked remotely for a while. Where I work, we ended up probably even longer than most school districts around actually kept our kids at home longer. And we went from March of 20 all the way through mid-April of 21 working from home. And then even at that point, staff came back, and then it was optional for kids whether they were going to come back or stay remote. And I would say at that point, for the remainder of last school year, there was probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the kids who decided to stay remote. And this school year, we required it to be in person. There wasn't a home option unless it was for issues related to quarantine. And when they were quarantined, then of course they had the option to, or the requirement, I guess, to work at home in that way.
We had a group, I want to say last fall. So about maybe this time last year, we convened to say, how are we doing? What's it looking like? We're another year kind of away from that. School year has started. You're in. Anything for you or in the work that you're doing that came out of this time that you're going to keep, didn't exist before, but like, you're like, oh, this is really good. I'm going to hold on to this. Anything like that where it just, you kind of figured this thing out?
Yeah, certainly. One thing that's really helped, our school district invested in Microsoft Teams. And that was a product when we initially left spring break of the previous school year, the 1920 year, in March of 20, from there till May, we really didn't have a good real-time communication with our students. We would make phone calls, and then everything else was asynchronous. So going over like either traditional email, or we had a structured Canvas type program that the students would interact, asynchronously with us. But we didn't have that real-time communication on a regular basis. And once we started it the following, once the new school year began, the 2021 school year, we got Microsoft Teams pretty quickly on board. It was amazing because we had for adults, I would say folks in their 20s, 30s, 40s, they picked it up relatively easily. Some people who weren't as tech savvy, it was a little harder, especially in a remote setting, to learn how to use a new platform. And then for our students, those kids, they can figure things out, and they figured out Microsoft Teams faster than the adults, I think. And so we had some good successes. But now you're asking, now that we're back, we kept Microsoft Teams. It's a great communication tool that we use between both staff and students. And even when you factor in the things like, even when you're back in person, you're looking at ideas like social distancing and making sure that you're respecting that space with the students, even more so. And with Microsoft Teams, there are certain things that you can communicate a quick response to a student that's in your classroom versus having to go up next to them for a longer period of time. So it's just keeping everyone safer, and it's great. Yeah.
I think Teams, it's greatly improved. We we had been a early adopter in late 18, early 2019 on the Teams, and everybody was kind of skeptical of it. And then, of course, early 2000, this hits. We're forced onto it. I shouldn't say forced onto it. That sounds bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, we're going home, right? We're going to do this thing. And man, it wasn't ready. And it has grown up fast. And it's still, I mean, what they all do. But certainly, do you have any, Teams is quite extensible where, a Zoom, you don't really think about doing development on top of Zoom, but Teams is kind of it's a platform. There's plugins for it and things you can do with it. Do you guys lock that down, or do you ever find the students use some of those features? But like most people just use it for video conferencing, but it's got to-do lists. It's got, other plugins you can put in. Do you have any problems with that?
No, our IT department locks things down pretty hard.
Okay.
We'll have, I think the funnest things the kids can do is throwing GIF files into the chat and things like that. But I work with the older kids. Our younger students, it may even be more locked down than that at the elementary school.
I remember when GIFs went live for us. That's all it was for like a week. Everybody just, you could. I was like, all right, guys, settle down. Like, this has been around a while. Okay. This is not like this is a new thing. But it's been interesting in the enterprise space to see how that's become acceptable from, we run at Gallup, we err on the side of freedom as opposed to restrictions, right? And so we allow kind of people to make their own decisions, and it's gotten appropriate. I mean, I think there's some moments where I'm having some communication and somebody will just put a funny GIF in, and it's actually in some cases, it's a great way to communicate. Like, it gets the point across. I know most of the time we use it, this is dumb or whatever, right? Yeah. But I think there's actually times when it can communicate how somebody's really feeling, and you get more than just, OMG, right?
I agree. And when you think about, even especially when you're working from home during that time, being able to almost communicate that humanity over a platform was extremely important and needed at that time.
Yeah. And I've got some folks that I work with, and there's just appropriate times they pop it in. It just makes me laugh. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually kind of more fun than being in person, to do it this way. And so you're back full time, kids are back in, it's working. Does it feel like it's back to normal, or is it a new normal? Like, did it affect it in a way that it's just not ever going to be the same again for the way you guys did it before? Or how is that working from the way the classroom works?
Sure. It's definitely, we go in phases, and our phase is still backed up 1 or 2 phases before it's what, quote unquote, that new normal. Where I work, they're being extremely cautious, and keeping staff and students safe. But we have giant dividers everywhere in the classroom, big plexiglass dividers.
Wow.
And we drastically limit how many students are in a room at one time. We're all wearing masks while we're inside the classroom, and then outside, as long as you're more than 6 feet away from somebody, you're allowed to take off your mask. And everyone's very respectful of that. Very, very rarely do I have to remind somebody. And it's just the policy. You just have to say, this is the policy. And it's as short and long as that.
Seems like that's working for some, right?
Yeah. I think so. And if I let the students know if they need what they call a mask break, well, and again, I work with older kids. I say, and our building faces the outdoors, and so it can, there's an outdoor, connects to a bathroom that's outdoors. Well, use the bathroom, and on your way to the bathroom, take off your mask. That type of thing. So,
yeah. Good. Do you, you mentioned you're using Teams. Does that automatically make you guys a Microsoft shop from a school perspective, or what kind of equipment, or how would you characterize some of the software and hardware you're using for the students?
Sure. So, with the school, they provide us Windows laptops. and the Windows laptops. Microsoft is the main deal that we have. Everything that we have, the Microsoft 365, or I guess you call Office 365. And so we're very heavy Microsoft. We don't use Google at all. Just their privacy policy that they have set up, and they just don't do it. And but yeah, so with that, we use that. Now, individual teachers will, as long as it's within the regulations and what's allowed, we'll use some of the software, especially if it's web-based. Right. If we can, bring on a website, that's completely okay. We just can't install anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You're an Apple guy, right? And how does that? How do you? It used to be that was those two worlds were far apart, and it seems like anymore. Like I go back and forth. I don't even think about it anymore. But how does that work for you?
You do pretty well, actually. And like you said, for the most part, it's once you call up the app of whatever you're using, the interface really disappears behind it. It's a lot of really both app stores and platforms offer almost the exact same things. A little bit behind the scenes is a little different. But yeah, I work in both worlds, and all my personal stuff has pretty much transitioned over to Apple. Yeah.
Why Apple for you? What is it about that it would be easier? Like, you're in a school that's Windows. Why Apple?
Sure. So Apple for me started really young. When I was a kid, we got our Mac Classic, and I loved that Mac Classic, and I would use the heck out of that thing well over its lifespan of how long it should have lasted. And while everyone else was connecting to the internet in the mid 90s, we didn't have internet yet, and I was still using that Mac Classic and playing black and white games, and and having fun on that. And as I got older and I got a job working retail and restaurants and stuff, and I would save up my money, and I bought myself a Mac desktop, and then a couple Mac laptops, and then in 2006 that stopped. I think life got in the way, and they call that the quote unquote Apple tax, and it's a real thing. And that stopped me from Apple for a while. And I did dabble into, I got myself PCs, and I preferred to use the Apple, but it was expensive, especially, as a college student in my first couple of years teaching. That just wasn't going to happen. So, but it was funny because slowly I started getting back into Apple, and I went back and forth between Android and iOS for my phone, and I ended up 2017. I got myself an iPhone SE, a refurb, the older one, and started using that. And what the funny thing was, you brought up, it'd be much easier if you stayed with one platform, and I agree. So I really did a very thorough job, I think, of trying to find basically applications that didn't really matter. They were agnostic to whatever I was using. So I would use like Pocket Cast instead of Apple Podcast, in order to be able to say, I may not have this forever. I'll go back to Android and I'll be okay because I'm using the other platform. And so I started doing that. And then I went ahead and I picked up a iPad in 2018. First iPad I ever owned. And then I started to see like, oh, wait, look at this. I can AirDrop. I can, using Safari, I can open the tabs on both the phone and the pad. And I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I started learning more about this Apple Watch thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So got that. And then by then, oh man, it was too late. And you're already using the phone, you're using the iPad, you're using the watch. And then when we were working from home, I started doing some adjunct work, and working from home, I started working adjunct, and I decided, because I was going to use my personal computer for that. And my personal computer, I'm like, I'm going to go out and buy a Mac. So I got myself a 27-inch iMac.
Nice.
Yeah. So now I'm in.
You've been in, it's what's interesting for me, similar story. I don't know if I've ever really even talked about this at Home Gadget Geeks. In 1982, I started writing, code. I developed software on an Apple IIe as a high schooler.
Oh, cool.
And we'd get together after school and write, it's basic, but we'd write programs, and we started writing games. And a buddy, we got so into it, a buddy of mine dropped out of school and started programming. As in Silicon Valley. He started programming, I think it was COBOL or something like that in those days, and Fortran, one of those. And I just wasn't that interested in dropping out of school to do software development. And we didn't get even really IBM computers at the school till probably my senior year. Some HP 8088s that we did a little bit of basic on and developed. And then I went in the military. When I came back, I just couldn't. I was like you. I just couldn't. I just couldn't afford to be in the Mac space for the most part. Windows, and even Windows computers were expensive.
Yep.
And really wasn't until probably 95 that I got even my first Windows computer. That I was in college. I was dirt poor. Like, I just, computers were a couple grand right at that point. Like, we complain about a couple grand right now. This was a couple grand of $1995, right?
Right.
Which was super expensive. And I had somebody give me a Windows computer, and I pretty much stayed Windows at that point from that point on. But I too am in this spot, and I even did a Palm Pre for a while. I tried to stay on the Windows Phone as a phone device. Of course, we know that didn't work out. Did Android for a while, and just was like, I need a phone that just works. And so I think I started at a 4 at the 4 version. So today I'm talking to you on a Mac Mini, but flanking it is all Windows stuff. And in most of the infrastructure here, I just have one Mac. Everything else is Windows. But the goal when I got the Mac was to make it feel like I wasn't going on a Mac. Well, now I can thank Windows 11, because Windows 11 looks like Mac OS. Like, it literally. Have you gotten a chance to mess with Windows 11 yet?
No, we're still using Windows 10 on our work computers, but I've looked a little bit on some videos. Yeah, just the stylistically, it does look a lot more Mac-like.
It's almost exactly. It's got they've centered the task manager down the bottom. It's got the bloom, which looks a lot like the Mac OS that I'm on right now. And I'm kind of like, oh, well, those look a lot alike. And so you have a hard time. I have a hard time telling them apart. I think you said this, the app infrastructure is what matters. What am I using out of the browser, or what am I using out of the apps? Now, that's not the same for everybody, and I get that, right?
Right.
But I think for the average guy, I think we're to that point. I could probably put my wife on a Mac, and she probably wouldn't know. It'd be one of those kinds of things like, oh, that was, and there's some things, she might even say, I could probably put her on a Mac and say it's Windows 11, just to be, one of those kinds of things. And there'd be a few questions, and then she'd figure it out, and we'd roll forward. Right. So yeah. It's I just don't, we've been doing this a long time, and there used to be that big divide, and I just don't see it anymore for the most part. What are you carrying for a phone right now? What's your main driver on a phone?
Yeah. So I actually updated to, that's the iPhone 13 mini.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I replaced the SE and got myself a 13 mini, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good, I didn't plan on this, but I upgraded my daughter to it, and we were just in a spot. She was on an 8, and I was holding out. And we just at this point, and then it just that phone just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I checked into it, and Sprint's like, well, T-Mobile now, like, we'll give you a lot of money for that really crappy phone if you stay on T-Mobile. And I was like, okay. So, a couple bucks a month, just, I think the whole thing's like $160 and they took her really bad iPhone 8. Yeah. Why wouldn't we? So she's on a 13. I didn't even think about it. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I'm just on a 12, but she loves it.
And I remember, wasn't she dabbling into like a lot of photography?
She was, and she is. Yeah.
So I mean, the 13's got a great camera on it. Yeah.
No, it'll be good for her. going forward. Couple items I want to talk to you about tonight. In one, I don't know if I've ever talked about on the show, but as an educator and in the work space you're doing, and I've been thinking about it. This isn't what it is, but like Grammarly, this is one of those applications that sneaks its way into your life. And then when it's gone, like I just realized I was in a browser and Grammarly had been disabled for some reason or whatever. And I was sending all kinds of really bad spelling errors. I don't know what happened. TextExpander, for you've been dabbling in that. And that's one of those I tried one time, but then it was like, oh, I got to remember these codes to get. So talk a little bit about your use case. Why would you dabble in that where it kind of completes things or fills things in for you? How are you using it?
Sure. Yeah, actually, I've been using for quite a few years. In Mac OS, they have a little replace text box. So let's say you're always misspelling something. You can set it up where every time you misspell it that way, it'll respell it a different way. And I was getting by with that for a long time. And so it was good. It was good stuff. But I kept hearing more and more about this program called TextExpander. And it's from a company called Smile. And they originally, I think, were just on the Mac. I mean, they've expanded. They're on, I have them on my phone, and they're also on, I believe, Windows. And there's actually an extension now in the for the Chromebook. You can do it on that as well. And essentially, in its most basic way, it replaces text. And so you set up an abbreviation, and it then replaces that abbreviation with whatever text you put in. So if you type in, your name or a particular greeting or something over and over again, you can set that up where it simply replaces that text with whatever it is you're typing. And you brought up the concern with having to remember some of the codes that you put in. It's got a really nice interface where you can actually look up what your codes are, and you can actually search. So if you remember a certain word that it's replacing or something of that nature, there's a search function. So you can search for a word and it'll tell you what the abbreviation is. And so that's really helpful in case you forget. But one thing I haven't dived into it too much, but I've been watching some videos on it. This is a pretty powerful aspect of it. I guess you can have a block of text, and let's say you tend to send, whether it's a client, whether it's a student, whether it is a block of text that's, I would say 99% of the block is the same, but there's certain aspects. Maybe it's a name, maybe it's you're doing well, not so well, you're ahead of pace, you're behind pace. There's little toggles of minor changes you have to make to those paragraphs. They have little drop-down menus. So you put in the code, it fills in this block of text with these drop-down menus strategically placed where you put them, and you can just choose the options on those drop-down menus, and then send your email or send whatever, post it, whatever it is that you're doing with that. And that's pretty powerful. I've only begun to dabble into it, but it has a little statistic box up there too, which is kind of cool. And it tells you, you've saved 28 minutes tonight using our program.
Yeah.
Because it records how fast you type.
Right.
So I'm like, that's
right.
cool.
Yeah. When I first tried it, so in my role at Gallup, I do send a lot of the same, I kind of do a concierge type work with our, we have about 11,000 certified coaches around the world. And I end up repeating myself all the time. I couldn't, my workflow today, or I would say up until just a couple months ago, was I just had actually a text document that I would open up as I was getting ready to process all this information. I would, in their scenario, for me, there's scenarios. Their email is bouncing on us. We are, or it's getting blocked. I get a message back. Hey, you're, and these are customers. We want to get, they want communication from us. They want it.
Sure.
For whatever reason, it's been blocked, or they made a mistake and put it on a, do not, or an unsubscribe or whatever. So I end up saying very, very similar ones. But when I tried TextExpander, that was the problem, is I was like, I am better at like geospatial location of things. Like I can find I can identify a block of text in a whole bunch of text because I know exactly where it's at. And it's easier for me. What I've been doing is highlighting it, right click and paste. And now in Windows, you have a history of your copy and paste. So Windows V, that box pops up and it says, hey, here's the last 10 or 15, whatever it is. Things. Well, that's, to me, that's just like TextExpander, because the variety of things I say isn't enough to need a whole big database of it. It's really about 3 things at any given task that I'm doing. So that was always, for TextExpander, that was always the no-go for me, was like I have trouble remembering those key, what I want it to do, and maybe it does, and maybe I need to check this out, is I need to start typing that sentence. And then it says, oh, I see you're typing this sentence. Do you want to finish it with this? Does it do that? It always, to me, it seemed like I needed to remember some kind of code to make it work.
Yeah, that kind of that predictive text.
Yeah, a little more predictive. But the predictive text today for me, what I get in Windows or what I get in Outlook or what is just one word at a time, or maybe 2. Like I start these sentences the same way every time. It appears to us that your email, okay, well, and then it should finish it by saying is bouncing. And we need can we get an updated email address from you, something like that. So
I would say to my knowledge, they don't have the predictive text, but if you are typing that same thing over and over again, it can do obviously spaces and return. So you could program, but
maybe I need to make the codes just longer and make it what I'm actually typing in. I was finding in the process, I wasn't hitting that enough. For me, it was just easier, to have maybe 7 things that I have long text on. It was just easier to go back to I really wanted it to work for me.
Right.
It just didn't so I wanted, I tell you what, I may go back now that we're talking about it here. I may go back and give it another run. Be like, oh, maybe I didn't, because cross PC, right? There's a browser plugin that you can use with it and pretty much get it working on anything, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't recall seeing it on Android. I don't know if that would affect you in any way, though. But I remember that was the one platform I didn't see advertised. But for me, it was the price was helpful too. They do run a subscription model, and I believe it's $30 or $35 a year.
Yeah.
So relatively very cheap. And I've even seen updates even since I've had it for about a month. And that one thing that's kind of nice is they'll give you some pre-built databases that you can download, such as commonly misspelled words, which is helpful. So if you start typing that word, it'll correct it. And then the one that's kind of cool is brand names. Like if you type in the name Facebook, well, I think it's a lowercase f and a lowercase b, but I'm not sure. Or is it 2 words or 1 word? Is it capital F, lowercase b, and so forth? One of those types of things. So it helps out with brand names too. Yeah.
Where do you find you use it most? In communicating with people, or when you're trying to write longer documents? Where's it helping you the most?
Where I'm initially using it now is mostly when I return feedback on students and their work. So it's relatively short, a couple paragraphs. But the one thing that I'm going to start dabbling into is using that feature where you have the drop-down menus. And that I think will be more of when I'm sending out longer emails, being able to connect with, varying more. The majority of the text is the same, but I want to differentiate it slightly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess I'm going to have to give it another run now that you're talking about it. Cause I want it so badly to work for me. And
and they do offer a pretty generous trial. I think it's a 30-day trial. So I just barely started paying for it.
Yeah. Well, I got to give it a spin. I think on the phones, the predictive, it seems like the predictive text or whatever we call that on a phone is even better than it is on the desktop. Right. Yep. It seems like, because that's where people are thumbing it, and that's where I think, and I don't know about you, but if I have a long response to an email it goes back under unopened, and or flag it, whatever. And I'm not going to answer this till I get back to a desktop.
Yep.
I'm not gonna thumb that thing, to make it work. Although TextExpander would, in that case, if I had a long answer that it was going to be standard, that may be a place where TextExpander would work and save the day, and I don't have to necessarily go back to that email later. That might work. That may be a place where it saves my bacon.
Yeah, I don't think I've barely used TextExpander on my phone, except for I think maybe some autocorrect misspelling type things.
Yeah.
But
can you with AutoExpander? So if I wanted to put something in, I can go to the database of my things and just pick it from there, can't I? Just say, no, insert this thing, because that's what I'm doing with a flat file, with a text file today. Is I'm just going to it and picking from, okay, that's the one I want, highlight it and bring it in. I imagine I could do that out of TextExpander.
Yeah, you can open it's an application that sits on the bottom of the tray, the dock on Mac OS, and then it's also in the menu bar. So I just click on the menu bar. It also has a quick add feature where, let's say you had something on your clipboard, so you press Control Copy, and you paste it in. You can create an instant little snippet real quick using whatever's on your clipboard too. A nice quick add.
Yeah. Then this should also be a thing where dictations should be working. Like, in other words, I should just say it, but that's still not for some it is, but for most people, we're not talking to our computers like I thought we would be, where I just say dictate, computer, dictate, right? And then I would say things. I don't know about you, but when I try to talk to the Amazon lady, I screw up those sentences like I've never talked before.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I've got this one, speaking of Amazon, I've got this one set up because in our bedroom, we have the colorful lights, and we usually have it set to, like a dark blue or something like that. That's easier on the eyes when you're trying to go to bed, and then we turn it off. Well, when I get up in the morning and I'm trying to find a particular shirt in the dresser, you open up the dresser and you have a dark blue light shining into the dresser. And I'm trying to figure out what color is this shirt. And so I made a command to change the light bulb to white, but not have to say so many words.
Yeah.
But I always forget. And
yes, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, what's the command to do this? And
they didn't have this problem on the Enterprise.
No, for some reason, when they're talking to the computer, it works flawlessly, and they're doing complex calculations, warp drive calculations, and saving the ship from imploding and some of those kinds of things. I just never seem to get it right. I mean, listen, Brian, I make the same pot of coffee every morning, right? I get my perk out. I wash it out. I put the grounds in, and I tell the A lady, set a coffee timer for 8 minutes and 30 seconds. That's what it's going to take to get it perking. And then depending upon when it goes off, I say add 5 minutes or start a brew timer for 5 minutes. Right. It does that. I screw that up 4 out of 5 days, and then I get 2 timers going, and I get, and I'm just like, hey, what is it? It must be me. Like, I just must not be good enough. But
I think it's all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we'd be talking, dictation, and it would be doing it and correcting it as it goes and some of those kinds of things. And maybe in some cases it is, but I just don't feel like for most people they're using those features.
Well, and maybe it's the fact I was thinking about when you were talking about dictation. One of the biggest problems is, punctuation, whether it's a comma, period, exclamation, question mark, that type of thing, and then connecting it to the Enterprise. How many times did they set that ship to self-destruct? And it never did. Maybe they thought it was a question. Should I self-destruct? And then set the timer. is it a 5-minute timer to
I know.
self-destruct?
I know. And why was it never configurable? Why
Yeah.
was it always 1 minute so that they had to rush off the ship?
Yeah.
You would think you would want that one command to be configurable, right?
It's like,
But
okay,
then
now I'm ready to cross into the safe area. 30 seconds. Now go. Good.
but they knew they would make a mistake because you'd say 1 minute and it you might cough when you say minute and it thinks you said second. That's
Right.
it. Right. That's it. You're done. Well, Jim Shoemaker says in chat, he says he's never used TextExpander, but he finds iOS voice to text pretty useful. And I do think this is probably the use case. A lot of people are sending texts and those kinds of things via voice. But these aren't documents. These are I think for most people, yeah. It's just this is just communication going back and forth. We're not like you would you for a student, would you talk into your phone and just send it to him? Or you got to make sure it's right?
Well, I guess as long as it doesn't send yet, and you had a simple reply of saying, yes, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, I would be comfortable. And especially since you still have to read it before you still have to click the little send button.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. But I would, something more formal, no way.
The one of the things with Teams that I've really liked on my Apple Watch is the ability to just to type back simple. You get a message, yes or no, and you can scroll through a bunch of pre-made responses, or just hit the text and type it. I underestimated how powerful that writing could be in getting quick messages to people. Right? If the message if it's not a pre-made message back, typing that in is not difficult at all, and sending it on the watch is pretty handy.
It is. For me, my watch is my personal watch versus my work stuff. So it doesn't connect with our Teams.
Okay.
But with regards to dictation, I found like the AirPods are great. You can be walking and you just ask for the yes lady and then say text, whoever, and you can dictate something back real quick.
Yeah. I do think that's a skill, by the way, getting through those commands in a way. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. I don't do it enough. And so I'm still kind of clumsy at it, but I watch my wife do it, and she grabs the phone, says whatever, and then starts talking, and she's adding in punctuation and all kinds of things on the fly. Like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So I think it's a skill. Yeah. I think it's just a skill that you get more comfortable with. I thought in the chat room, we'd have more folks listening that have used it, TextExpander, but no. Dave Jackson on Ask the Podcast Coach podcast I do on Saturday mornings. Mm-hmm. This is an area he does tech support for Libsyn. Mm-hmm. And this is an area he uses a lot of because it's the same kind of deal. That's probably where TextExpander is bread and butter, is in support, right? When you're constantly sending the same. But I find sometimes people read into that, they get the feeling have you ever had this happen where they're like, did you really type that? Or is this a cut and paste? I hear this a lot from people complaining about support people. They've called in to get support and they get the standard answer, right? Yeah. Do you ever, well, you just started using this, but do you ever feel like that could be something people could read into that?
I think there's a time and place for it for sure. When I send out particular grade reports, it's pretty black and white. This is your grade. You're ahead of pace. You're behind pace. It's a pretty standard response. So that part of the email, I think, is appropriate to use for some of those canned responses. Yeah. And of course, you want to add a personal connection to it, and build that rapport and relationship, building with your students and their families. Mm-hmm. So that aspect I would probably differentiate. But even within an email, I think you can use both.
Yeah. I think I'll try it again. I need to maybe rethink, like, well, what's my strategy going to be on this? How do I get past the codes? Maybe finding a different way for me to make that work. Because it would be beneficial. I would like Attract. I use Grammarly, but this has also got some spell check kind of associated with it. We get spell check built into stuff. So, okay. Well, maybe maybe you've talked me back into giving it another try. You're all. Oh, did you want to say one more thing?
Oh, I was just going to say, with a 30-day free trial they give you, I mean,
Yeah.
some places don't give you like a week. These guys,
Right.
30 days, it's a good amount of time.
Yeah.
It's enough to, in your workflow, you can include it and really try to see if you like it. Yeah.
I felt it was real generous. The last when I tried it, I think I did it on the trial, and I felt like it was a generous, a month to give it a try. Again, it just didn't really, for me. I was just like, oh man, this is kind of a little more work. Now today. I do a little more of that constant communication that's similar, right?
Right.
Where I'm trying to find, tell them, hey, your email address is bouncing, or we're having
Sure.
trouble communicating with you. So maybe I'll give that a try. You're trying another tool, Classroomscreen, at classroomscreen.com. I'm going to bring this up. Talk to me a little bit about that. How are you using that, and what is this?
Sure. So it's a website. You go to classroomscreen.com, and you can use a perfectly easy version. You don't have to necessarily log in and do anything like that. They also have a paid version, which I've gone ahead and adopted. But basically, as we got into the environment of going back into the classroom and working with our students, I use this on my whiteboard. It's one of those LCD touchscreen boards. And I put this up here, and I pretty much have it up there the whole day. And it's a digital tool with interactive web applications within it. And what I've found is, every period after taking attendance, I walk up, in the back of class, and I let the students know, okay, let's go over the agenda for the day, and some of the widgets that I like putting up there. I choose a custom background that's appropriate to, maybe there's a holiday this week, so I had a lot of, patriotic, stuff for Veterans Day leading up to today. Leading into Halloween, we had some more Halloween themed type backgrounds that I chose. And so you put those up there on the board, and then you start putting up these little widgets. I like using the clock. It's a digital clock and an analog clock. It's obviously good to just know always what time it is when the kids, there's one on the little computer screens they have, but that's helpful. I put a little calendar up there. It's always a nice reference tool to have a calendar. I then use the text box, and the text box allows you to use, make things bold, italicize, underline, different sizes. So, a lot of different ways to display your text. I put up there if there's anything special going on with the schedule that day, like an early release schedule or anything, particular event happening at school, things like reminder type things. And I like to use like some sort of like a quote that connects with the kids, something sometimes thematic, usually something, try to get them with growth mindset type ideas, making good choices, those types of things. And then I throw a little joke of the day up there, always these dumb dad jokes that I put up there, and the kids groan. And I know that, and I always tease them. I said, when you guys finish my class, you guys are going to be really sad. You don't get to hear my jokes anymore. But
no, they're going to start saying them. That's what happens, right? It just, my daughter found a meme of like, 20 things dad says, and I say 19 of them. I mean, I was like, yeah. So we were leaving the restaurant. We went out for dinner tonight. As we were leaving, I grabbed my keys, and I'm like, not going to get very far without these things. That's one of the things dad says, right? And she almost fell on the floor laughing. She thought it was so funny. So the whiteboard that you have digital, what's running, what runs that whiteboard? Is it its own OS, or is it running on Windows, or how does that work?
I believe it's running off of Windows. It's connected to our computers. It's I don't know the model number. It's an Epson short throw something or other. You can interact and touch it. In my workflow, I tend not to use that feature as much as I probably should.
For you, it's just a big display. In other words,
for me, it's a big display.
So, but then you can. This is web based, so you jump into it, and then you take these widgets. Whatever. I love this idea. There's a sound level widget in there.
The kids love it. It's so cool because it measures your decibels from your microphone on your laptop.
Yeah.
And I started out using it, and I didn't tell the kids what that decibel meter was. They just saw like this little thing, and they kind of figured it out. Hey, when we're talking, and they should be, the talking should be kept to a minimum. but if they were talking kind of loudly, that decibel meter was like going into yellow and red,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
figure it out. It's kind of cool.
Kind of a nice reminder, like, hey, you
Yeah.
guys can if I was teaching, and maybe you do this too,
Mhm.
I'd be like, okay, this is a talking time, but it needs to stay below this. And
Yep.
so it really gives them kind of a standard
Yep.
right. So they kind of, oh, guys, and they probably police themselves maybe a little bit on that.
Self-regulate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good, trait to take with you even after leaving high school, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One thing that was kind of cool there, I use a widget for the QR code
Hmm.
generator.
Hmm.
And, a lot of our kids, they love using their phones anyways. So I said, they're going to have their phones. Let's have them interact with their phones in a responsible way. And so I put up this QR generator and you put in a website and like I said previously, we use a lot of Microsoft products. And one of them is the forms that they use, Google, Microsoft Forms, where you create like poll questions.
Hmm.
And so I create, I do like little poll questions, just touching base with the kids. I get to know them. I'll ask them. Sometimes they're more based academically. Are you planning on coming to Saturday school this week? Yes or no? Those types of things. Or sometimes just to get to know my kids or what they're interested in. So I'll throw up there something like, what streaming services do you use? Check all the boxes, and that type of thing. Something that's low key, friendly, and just builds that classroom rapport with the kids. And I love using that feature. That's something really neat. But I'll tell you my number one favorite feature, and it's the only reason why I paid for it, because everything else it's all free. They have a couple premium widgets, I guess, but the only one that I really care about is the fact that you can save your screens.
Mm.
So I'll make them for the week. I'll try to get a week ahead in the screens that I'm making, and then I can of course tweak them if something, schedule change type things, of course. But I can keep that skeleton of what I built. And there was nothing worse than when we had to do, I built a screen. It doesn't take forever to build, but you place everything where you want it, and moving it from my computer screen onto that whiteboard. The whiteboard has a different resolution, and so I'd have to rearrange all the
Mm.
widgets, and so it takes a little bit of work. Not horrible, but a little bit of work. And then what do you know? In the middle of the day, my computer would freeze.
Mm.
And the only way to make it unfreeze would be either the control alt delete or just the hard shutdown and restart. And if you can't save your screen, you're going back to the beginning and
Mm.
recreating it from
Yeah.
scratch.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of I used to do some copy and pasting. I'd have the text box ready in a Word document, so I'd pull up the Word document, copy and paste that into a text box. But then you're doing stuff on the fly when you could be you're doing something a lot more productive. So
Yeah,
that
and
was
then right, you can save it, set it, come
yep.
back to it. There's even more widgets than we were looking at. We were looking at those 9 widgets on the screen. There's a
Yeah.
dice widget. My kids are into D&D, and now
Yep.
it doesn't look like it supports 20-sided die, but which they're using all the time for that. But you get some. You can go in the. Do you ever roll dice in the classroom to kind of decide
Once
things?
Yeah, so sometimes we'll have that. There's a random name generator. You'll notice a little gearbox in the corner. If you click on the gearbox, you might actually have some more functions on the on there. So sometimes if you click on the dice widget, you'll notice a little
Oh,
gearbox
the
inside the
gearbox
dice.
on the dice. Sorry, there we go. Yep.
Oh, that's okay. So this one doesn't have an option, but you'll do notice the background color.
Yep.
You can change its HTML. So they give you about 12 or 14 colors. But if you I open up a second window and I open up HTML code for different colors,
Hmm.
and I'll try to blend it. Like if I were you, like personally, what I would be doing right now is finding the HTML code for something that's like a orangish color to blend with the background,
There you go.
and just
There
kind
you
of
go.
make it visually nice for the kids.
Well, that is, and
Yeah.
then you can kind of go with the seasons. You could.
Yep.
Do you ever let them pick like what gets displayed on this?
I do actually. One of the things that I've been putting up as one of my text items is, and again, they'll answer through Teams, is I'll say to the kids, are you, I said, if you have any suggestions of a quote or a background image or a joke that you heard, something that's classroom appropriate that you would like to just, have displayed, I said, just message me in the text box and then also let me know if you want me to credit your name to it. you know, and then it's kind of nice. Some of the kids want the recognition, some kids don't, and some kids are indifferent towards it. But yeah, there's so many cool tools. We'll go we have our breaks between our class periods. So like what you just pulled up there, the widget for a countdown timer, it makes a little dinging sound so they can know when to come back into class and the next class period has started. And
yeah, I guess what I love about this is it's just drop dead simple. Like I've never seen this before. And immediately I was able to be like, oh, I could bring this, we could do that, we could get this done. I brought the traffic light in, which in the instructions they say, like this could mean now is not a great time to come ask for help, right? It's a red light. Or you could change that maybe to green, right? And say, oh, okay, I'm available for now. And the students can look up on the screen and see if they can get up to, I was thinking, maybe I'd put a big screen outside my studio here, and I would just, hey, you can come bother me, because they during the day, if they want to bother me, they come around and whisper, "Are you on a call?" kind of thing. I get that. I'm like, nah, I'm okay. We got to come up with these, and it doesn't happen very often, but kind of cool to be able to set this, to say, yeah, you can come see me, or now it's not a good time, or whatever. Do you use the stoplight feature for anything else?
I don't use the stoplight personally, but you got me thinking when you were mentioning, using it outside your studio. I think, there's some tools that are more appropriate to a classroom, as the name of the website indicates. But I could see a lot of businesses, in an office environment, utilizing a tool like this, in certain aspects. I think some of them are more appropriate than others, but if you're doing a in-person professional development and you were doing something collaborative and wanted to have something up on the screen, and you can open up more than one copy of most of them, I think. Like I know you can open up multiple text boxes, multiple timers, things like that. So different things that you can have going on simultaneously for different things.
You can hide.
Yeah. Yep, you can hide, so you get more screen real estate. They have a random number or random name generator, so you can. And it says name, but you could put in other things too. If you number, or you could be numbers, of course. It could be items. Something along that line. You could some sort of a bingo game or something.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. I learned about this at a PD. Yeah.
Classroomscreen.com if you want to check this out. I know we have quite a few educators that listen here, but I'm kind of thinking of like, what else? Like, as I see this, I'm like, this is kind of a cool little, if I had a kitchen PC that I could, there's things, I could kind of set the timers that way. I use a lady for that, but you're kind of like, this is pretty handy. I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was created by a teacher themselves, actually, who created it. So, yeah.
And I think the pricing on it is not, let's see if I can go back to that.
I think it's about
terrible, right?
$30 a year or free. Yeah. So depending on what features you need, completely free or $30 a year.
That's super reasonable.
Yeah.
This is a cool screen. I was just going through this. Let me reshare this. So sorry, we're so visual if you're listening to the audio on this. But there's this cool one right here. And, you got a moon, it's kind of a blue sky with the moon behind it. And I'm assuming they have, if I just keep clicking the back button, it seemed like it was creating new ones for me just automatically. So as I'm clicking, it's just kind of going back through and making new ones.
Yeah, if you click on the background, you'll see all the options they have. And so in the free model, you only get options of what they have. So on the widget, on the bottom where it says background, so the first one on the far left.
First one. Oh, there we go.
And then, so those are the options. Yeah. So they have some movable ones too, some animation ones, like a flowing river and stuff. So they're kind of cool. But again, those are ones that you have.
Yeah.
You can also include a webcam, so you can have a background being a webcam.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah. So there's a lot of neat things. And then if you have the pay version, you can incorporate your own backgrounds.
Yeah.
So we did something with the flag raisers, Iwo Jima and so forth.
Yeah. There's a big movement a big calming movement going on at the moment of meditation apps and visual images that are calming. We used to, in the enterprise space, people would have a little Zen garden on their desk, with a little rake and some sand. Well, there's now a whole kind of industry around images and particularly, short video or video clips or whatever that repeat this in these calming. You kind of wonder in this space with generally it can be kind of an anxious environment for people having this playing in the background. Have you experimented at all with any of those calming kinds of backgrounds?
A couple of them, actually. I think of especially we were talking about weather earlier in the Phoenix area, how hot it's been, and we'll get our rainy season-ish during our monsoon season, but there'll be a long periods of time where we don't have any rain. And what is this strange water falling from the sky? And so, like, I sometimes will put just calming thunderstorm music on and have that just on repeat. And it's just thunderstorms, and it's kind of calming. And then our version of cold is like 40 degrees in the our low. Right, that's our cold. And our kids get all super cold. And so what I'll do is I'll put the big fireplace, like the repeating 7-hour fireplace on YouTube. I'll put that on in the background once in a while and go up to the whiteboard and kind of, go with my hands up to the whiteboard like I'm warming myself.
Get a fire, like get a fire going. I've done that before. Put a fire on a monitor, just to kind of feel the way. Have you ever tried to sleep with any of those sounds yourself, where you've put rain or thunderstorms or any of those wind? Have you ever tried using that?
No, but I don't think I could sleep in complete silence either. So I would say neither. I love falling asleep to, like, on my A-Lady, I'll set sports talk radio, and I'll fall asleep to ESPN radio.
Really, words. I can't do that. That engages my brain too much.
Okay.
But, I like the actual sound when we get a windstorm and it's pushing against the house and you can hear the house kind of creak, under the pressure. I like that. Like, I don't know why, or especially in the winter, if we're getting a winter storm and it's snow and it's blowing and you can hear it howling and you hear the snow hitting the side of the house. It shouldn't be, but there's something super relaxing to me about. I love in fact, sometimes if that's happening early, I'll just go to bed early. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go out there because I want to hear that sound. I sleep against a southern facing wall. And so sometimes, especially in the summer, I hear the rain hitting the side of the house, which is very relaxing and very calming to me. We don't get enough of it, but so I need that. I can't, words would keep me awake too long.
Sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
I can't do music though. That's the difference in me though. If it's musical tune, I couldn't fall asleep to that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny just how we're all different with that. Jim in the chat says move to Oklahoma and you get tornadoes. I'm not necessarily sure. Yeah, that's a little too much for me, but I do. I have tried. If you tell the A-Lady, and you can do this on the Google devices as well. I've said play rain sounds or play wind sounds. The rain sounds like cooking bacon. Doesn't sound like rain. Like, on the phone, the speaker's not good enough. And I think what I actually need is a really good, if I'm going to do that, I need a really good set of speakers to get that bass. Because what you're listening for is the sound of that water hitting something and that bass sound. So I don't know. I've never really been able to get my phone to work for those, or even the devices are too small. Those speakers, they're too high. The frequencies are too high. I think you need a better sound device. Yeah,
I agree. It's maybe a little too tinny.
Yeah. But I'd like to figure that out. I think I'd like to do that more. I didn't even realize I was reading the comments on one of those sleep apps, and they're like, "Yeah, it sounds like sizzling bacon." And I was like, "No wonder I wake up so hungry."
It's like that mnemonic just telling you over and over again.
Yeah.
Eat bacon.
Oh yeah, it is that, and that's just torture. That's just torture. Anything else on that screen technology that you've been, in a way you've been using that may have surprised you?
I don't know, but well, the thing that surprised me is my colleagues have jumped on board with it too, and it's interesting walking through their classrooms, and everyone uses it in their own way. What's appropriate and what works for me and my workflow and workflow with the kids may be different from them. They have for the ones who use the freemium model, the free version, and I think it allows you to do a poll. And I said, oh, okay, that's kind of cool because then I'll use the poll too. But I started using the Microsoft Forms and then incorporating it with the QR code. And what I found is that's better for me because because I have the pay version, I can make multiple screens and save them. And for that function, I don't know if it's a bug or just, the sophistication of the software, but you can only do one screen, I think, one poll at a time. So if I make a new poll, it replaces the one that I previously made. And so if I'm working days ahead and building multiple screens, that's one of the goofy things about it, I guess. Yeah.
So we're displaying that's homegadgetgeeks.com in a QR code. If you want to come out and click on that, you can do that. In fact, maybe we can get a few of our live folks. It'd be interesting here. I'll try it with my phone just while we're doing it. Because this is, when I was out recruiting a lot, this was one of the things that was kind of harder to do, there we go, homegadgetgeeks.com. Click on it. It'll take me right there. That's pretty cool. QR codes have been around forever. Hold on. Why is it not going? Maybe I spelled it wrong. No. Interesting. It's not. It says Safari can't open the page. Interesting. Did I make that secure? HTTPS. Yeah, homegadgetgeeks.com. Interesting. Chat room, let me know. To pull your phones out and take a snapshot of that. Tell me if that resolves back to the pod page. I guess maybe we could also try. And you could do this on the fly, right? So if I don't like that, I could come here and put the average i.tv. And I would do this so that in theory, let's just try that again, see if that works. Chat room, play along with us if you can, or if you're on YouTube and you want to give this a try. Let's see how this goes. Do you find, that works out pretty nice. Do you find that's got to be handy in your teaching? They have their phones. You're letting them do that. My kids, 10 years ago, they couldn't even pull their phones out. They'd get them taken away. Yep. Are you using their phones as part of the learning experience then in that way?
I think we have a ways to go, but I'm just trying to show them appropriate ways to use their technology that they have in their hands. We have a curriculum that works already on the laptops, one-to-one laptops. So they're already having that in front of them. But, I just want them to figure out ways to use their technology in a responsible way. Yeah.
This would be handy. I think that, again, this would be handy, especially on the fly. You saw how fast I made this. So then I don't have to open another program. I can just grab the QR code, put the link in, or copy and paste the link in and say, go here, or save this here, or however you guys, however it works for you, could be kind of handy. For me, when I was recruiting, when I was doing, software development recruiting, I like to take a big monitor with me, and we would put things on it. In those days, just a couple of years ago, to be honest, I couldn't get students to use QR codes. All of a sudden, it's caught on again, and it's like, oh yeah, like it's funny to hear the kids because they think this is new, and I'm like, oh, sorry, like it's been around a while, but you're just using it. It's just gone back and forth on QR. It's so weird how sometimes it's worked and other times it hasn't, and it seems to be working now. Would you say that students are pretty good about using QR codes if you put it up there?
Yeah, it's pretty. I would say probably about half my kids like using it, and then the other half, what I'll do is I'll copy the URL and I'll put it into the chat for Teams, and then they'll click on that, answer it from the PC that they're already using. Oh. So some prefer still to do it that way, and that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Brian, anything else? We're bumping against the end here, but as you've listened to the show for a long time, anything else you want to add before we go?
not without breaking into brand new topics. So no, I think yeah.
What,
Yeah,
let me ask you this question. You're a Patreon supporter, and thank you for doing that.
sure.
I appreciate that. I reached out a couple months ago to all the Patreon supporters and said, "Hey, you want to be on the show?" And you said yes. It's actually been a blast. Like, I have really enjoyed getting to know. Oh, my timer just went off. I don't know if you. It was really loud. I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear it come through the microphone?
Mhm.
The timer, yeah. So I should probably close this so it doesn't do it again. That was really loud. I wonder if it played. No, it would have had to come through. It would have had to come out of here. Was it faint when you heard the
It
ring?
was just a little ding.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard it, but it wasn't like super
yeah.
loud. Yeah.
I've really enjoyed getting to know. Like, I don't know if I would have done this if I hadn't opened it up to you guys to say, "Hey, do you want to be on?" Just to kind of talk. So it's been a blast for me. So thank you for doing it. What I haven't asked anybody this to date, but I'm going to ask you, what would you love to see us do in the future? Like, you keep listening. I
Mhm.
should ask why. Maybe I don't want to know the answer why. But how could we keep, what would you like to see us do here on Home Gadget Geeks that would be interesting to you, do you think?
Well, I think one of the things, and this would open up a whole huge topic, was what you guys really inspired me to be able to continue to grow in home automation type things and give me
Mm,
confidence that I didn't have otherwise,
yeah.
and that's been a blessing. And I would say one big thing that I think helps is just keeping in the back of the mind of you know that a lot of that we've got a lot of return listeners, a lot of people who are watching, but we also have, I'm sure, a lot of folks who are picking up that hadn't listened before. And I
Mhm.
think being cognizant of being able to bring everyone along for the ride. And I think as you guys do a great job of that already, and just continuing that and bringing on when I think of things like problem solution. What's a problem we're facing in our lives,
Yeah.
and how do we solve it?
Yeah.
And if when it intersects with technology, that's the idea
Yeah.
with the show. Yeah.
Well, it really becomes like the conversations that we have at the meetups. When we get together in person, it's not everybody talking at once, but it's one person and me asking questions, and then we take questions or ideas from the chat room and bring them in. It's just curated form of it that we
Yeah.
do, but we try to keep it. Never wanted to be a review show. I've tried. I'm terrible at it. I hate doing reviews. Don't.
Sure.
There's plenty of people that do that so much better than I do, but the community aspect of it, right? Just conversations, I think, is what a lot. I think what most people listen to it for. Otherwise, they wouldn't be. They would have stopped listening to it because it's pretty much 100% conversations.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for thanks for coming on again. Appreciate doing. Thanks for listening. It's
Sure.
just you do this stuff all the time. I'm actually still surprised. There's Saturdays when I'm posting this thing, and I've gotten a pretty regular schedule now of getting this posted somewhere between noon and 1 on Saturdays. That happens because I'm listening to Cigar Authority while I'm editing this thing, and it almost always works where somewhere between noon and 1 Central, I publish it. I want to get it done as soon as Cigars Authority over. I got to go mow the lawn, or I got to go get my chores done, or those kinds of things. So I try to get it. I try to get it done. So it's gotten done on a really regular schedule. But thanks for listening, and thanks for hanging around and coming in the chat room. It's a ton of fun. Big thanks to everybody who came out into the chat room tonight. Is it weird being on this side of it as opposed to being in the chat room?
It is, but you have the type of personality that just makes you feel like you're welcomed, and
Okay.
even the listeners in the chat, it's part of the show. You're just part of the group, and that not everyone does that, and so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I really enjoy it. There's some Thursdays I'm like, do I keep going? Yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah.
let's do it again. I would be negligent if I didn't ask you this question though on the way out. Crypto, have you gotten into it? Have we gotten you into crypto, or are you avoiding it?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I'm avoiding it, but it has not been something that I've gotten into. Um, I Yeah, it's just something that I
Yeah,
just
good
haven't
call.
done.
It's
I
complicated.
mean, yeah, I mean, I have
It's
nothing
complicated.
necessarily
Yeah.
against it. Yeah,
Yeah.
but Just haven't.
Yeah, my daughter, Sammy will be on next Friday.
Uh-huh.
Thanksgiving Friday here in the US. She thinks crypto is the evilest thing ever. Like,
Well, yeah,
yeah.
I hear like the conversations about what was the big issue that was something that got Bitcoin specifically, I think, wasn't it? That was real. That got a lot of people upset.
Right now, I mean, one, it supports the dark web, right? I mean,
Yeah,
let's just be really clear. It's the financial system for the dark web. And then two, I mean, it is not efficient at all. I mean, especially Bitcoin. Like, it's created on gigantic, it takes a gigantic amount of energy to create.
that must be what it was. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
And you kind of go, is this responsible? I'm not sure that they ever thought about this when they were developing it the first time.
sure.
Oh geez, like this is going to take, like people are going to go. I think they were just happy a few people did it, right? This is going to take an enormous amount of energy to get, and now, I mean, I think Bitcoin mining represents more power usage than a couple of European countries put together or something like that. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So she hates it. Like
What I think one of the frustrating things would be, with the chip shortages and the folks buying up, what is it, like GPUs and stuff for
yeah,
this type of thing,
yep,
and
yep,
it keeps it out of the hands of other folks who might
yeah,
want to use it for other purposes. So
yeah,
I can see that
yeah,
aspect. Sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely supply and demand, and it's created some crazy demand for some of those
Yeah.
things. And you just kind of go, and I always remind her, I'm into hard drive mining now. That's what I do. More efficient. It's, gentler on the environment. Yeah, Dad, but they still got to make them. So, you're like, you don't really need all that storage. Well, yeah, no, I don't. But okay, so we'll just agree to disagree. So
Yeah.
she's coming on in a couple weeks, and I'm sure I'll have to. We've never really talked about it, but I will probably breach the crypto conversation with her on that Friday. She's gotten a little more opinionated over the last couple years, so I think she'll probably let me have it. If you've listened to the show with Sammy, she can let me have it. So, and I like it. So it's all good. So, Brian, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it, and hang tight with me here for 1 sec. We'll do a little bit of a post show. Couple reminders: the Home Gadget Geeks, of course, in the AverageGuy.tv. Really powered by Maplegrove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust. And of course, Christian. I need to call him. I haven't done that in a while. I need to talk to him. Head out to maplegrovepartners.com and plans start. No inflation. I mean, we had record inflation in the United States in October, but no inflation going on at Maple Grove Partners. $10 plans get you what you need, and you can set that up and get that rolling today. And of course, Christian will get you going for it. maplegrovepartners.com. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers, and Brian's one of those as well. And listen, if you're listening to this and I sent you an email inviting you on, and maybe you missed it, just contact me. Let me know. If you're thinking, if you'd like to jump on the show, I'd love to have you on as a Patreon subscriber. So let me know, Jim at theaverageguy.tv. You can always send me your feedback on the show and the things we're doing and show ideas and some of those kinds of things. We got some really great guests coming up. Jay Madison is coming back. I mentioned Sammy is coming back. I'm getting Marv to come back. So we've got some folks coming up. We'll get Aaron lined up as well. And we got some great guests coming on both here through December. And then I'm starting to book for January. So we'd like to see you in here if this is something. And if you got something to say, let me know. We'll see if we can get you in and get it done. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, almost every Thursday. We're not to Thanksgiving yet, right? We have 2 weeks here in the United States of Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. So not next week. Next week is just Mike and I think. Then Thanksgiving, no Thursday show, I want to say the 25th. And then 26th, Sammy and I are here 8:00 that Friday. She's going to blast me. She's gotten a little mouthy. So she's probably going to blast me. I shouldn't say a little mouthy. She's gotten a little really mouthy. And she'll be here. I think we're going to have a good time together. We'd love to have you come out for that Friday live show. You'll have recovered from your Thanksgiving, here in the U.S. anyways, your Thanksgiving coma. Come and join us on Friday night, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern. If you're joining us live, stay around for a smidge of a post show. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Brian, thanks again for doing that. What do you think? Like, okay, first time on it. What do you think after going through the experience?
I loved it. Thank you so much again for having me.
Good.
It was neat, and it, like you definitely have an amazing talent of really bringing people in that, you and I have never talked, in
No,
person or
not
live,
ever.
just through the chat room,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you have a really incredible way of making you feel like you have though before.
Oh,
And so I
good.
appreciate
Good.
that. Thank you.
Good. Yeah. Well, I love doing it.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I've discovered over the last 10 years that I'm not good at a lot of things and I'm not good at most things. Let's just be really clear. I suck at most things, but this I really like to do. And it's fun. In this in particular, the interview part of it to
Mhm.
me, I'm just curious. Like I kind of want to know. I want to talk about it and infer some things. Like this, that the classroom thing. That's
Uh-huh.
cool.
Yeah.
Like that's super cool. You
It was
know?
just something I discovered probably about 5 months before, maybe even less than that, before COVID. And we've been enjoying that in the classroom, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, just incredible. Yeah.
You're like, listen, I have learned so much on this show just by asking questions,
Uh-huh.
you know? And
Yeah.
and and it's not me, but I'm way smarter because we've had some really good guests on here, you know.
And that's kind of like what I tell the kids. I think it's connecting it with A lady stuff. I said,
Yeah.
if you can ask the A lady the question and you're getting an answer like that, that's not a good question and answer for you to
Yeah.
learn, because, as those are the type of questions that, the world's going to be able to answer with an A
Yeah.
lady. They're not going to be able to answer the more sophisticated things.
What's
Yeah.
the extent of your home automation? Give me a little, just give me a little bit of what you're currently using in the home automation space.
Sure. So I've got several plugs everywhere. Most of them are connected with lamps. But one of the neat things that I discovered, a cool use for a smart plug. So I don't know if you guys have the like the water coolers that you put the 5 gallon jugs on.
Mhm.
So we've got one of those. We got horrible tap water
Mm.
here, and so we bought one of those, and we put a smart plug on the back of that thing because we figure, for a few hours in the morning and then maybe like 6 or 7 hours in the evening, the only time we need cold water out of that thing.
Ah,
Other than that, let's not use the
yeah,
motor. Let's not
yeah.
save the electricity, save the motor. And so we put that thing on a timer with a smart
It's a
plug.
good idea.
Yeah, so that was kind of just a neat little novel thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
What
then
other kind of
yeah.
things are there other things in the house that would benefit from that of just having a limited time besides
Hmm.
lights, of course? Are there other things that you could I need to I mean, when I make my coffee, it's the same exact timing. It's 8 minutes and 30 seconds to the
Uh-huh.
boil, and then it's 5 minutes to the brew. And I don't have a smart oven,
Yeah.
so that's not going to happen. But I keep thinking, God, how do I automate this? Because it's exactly the same way each. But are there other things that would benefit from that kind of smart plug idea?
I've been thinking more and more about it
Mm,
because it's so many things is a
mhm,
push switch for the power on, but it
mhm,
doesn't push in and push out. So it's not like
right.
something you can put in an on position, then control it with the smart plug. And if there
Yeah,
were, I guess anything that would be in that position for like a
right.
push in to leave it on, or some sort of a switch to be in the on position, you could use that. But anything that's just like it goes back to the original position it was in, like a
Yeah.
television set. You really
What
can't. It's harder.
could you do that for like all our smart devices are sucking down energy because we have them on 24/7. We're only
Yeah,
using them a certain amount of time. Could you put all your like TV and that kind of stuff that is fairly solid state, doesn't
yeah,
require it to be on all the time. Leave that, I mean, turn your TV off, your those kinds of things where, between say midnight and 6 a.m., just shut that TV. I shut it all the way off, you
yeah.
know.
You could. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, yes, it would save electricity, but I wonder, how is it trickling electricity? I
Yeah,
mean,
who knows how
at the end of
much.
the day, the inconvenience of we were talking about how we forget the on the command to turn it on and off. Like, dang it, I can't watch my TV. I got to figure out a way to reach behind there and press a little
How
button.
do I turn this thing back on? Go
Yeah,
turn on turn on now, turn on please.
I'll tell you one thing I've actually learned to love with the
Mm,
on off with the plugs is are more so for Christmas than Halloween. We'll
mhm.
have inflatable things outside, and then we'll have lights.
Right.
And the inflatable things, we only want those on for, sunset to maybe like 10 o'clock. But the lights, we'll keep those on until almost dawn.
Yeah.
So, they're LED. They don't use hardly any electricity. They're not running a motor. So we'll keep those on much longer. So we have 2 different smart plugs with different timers on them for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one thing.
Yeah, that would be a good pool, like a pool pump would probably be another one where you want to, and they make timers and stuff for that. But you would think plug, a Wi-Fi plug could do just the same thing. That you would want to make sure the firmware and the software support kind of that scheduling, on and off scheduling and such.
And I've seen most do. I bought some that are Amazon brand, but a ton that are just third party ones.
Yeah. I like that.
Cameras. That's one thing we have a fair amount of cameras. We did the Ring doorbell, and we have 3 Ring cameras outside.
Okay.
We had a wicked crash the other day that was outside, and it got caught on the Ring camera.
Yeah.
We have a
like an auto accident.
Yeah. We had. So I was up in Laughlin with my friends, and my wife was still here. 5 o'clock in the morning, I get an alert on my phone saying somebody's at your door. I look at it. It's a sheriff. Sheriff's at my door, 5 in the morning. And I see my wife walk outside, and I'm watching this whole thing from my phone.
You could talk to him.
Room.
You could have talked to him right there too, right?
I could have, but I know my wife was coming out the door. And I was like observing, like, what the heck is going on here? And then I saw the damage. There was I look over and I watched the camera that was on that part of the driveway. We have a giant boulder that flanks the side of the driveway. A car comes out of nowhere, flying down the road, and lodges itself on top of the boulder. And he flees the scene.
Yeah.
And the car is lodged on our boulder. And then they come several hours later, and the tow truck takes away the car. But when they do, the boulder falls onto the driveway.
Oh yeah.
And so I've got a part of the boulder now on top of my driveway. I don't know how much these things weigh. There's no way I can. None of us can move it. No. And it's such a freak thing. So I actually ended up emailing our town council and our town manager, and I was like, I don't know if you guys can help me. I know you guys have a Bobcat for in your public works department. Can you help out a citizen here? And you know what? Kudos to those guys.
Did they do it?
Right over. They came over.
Wow, nice.
And major kudos to those guys. Yeah.
Wow.
For coming over. Because who do you call? That's such a freak thing.
That is. Yeah. How do you get that? Did they use a Bobcat, or what did they use how'd they get it back?
I think it was a Bobcat. It didn't. My camera didn't pick up on the actual work that they were doing, but either a Bobcat or I figure maybe a pickup truck and heavy duty with being able to pull. I mean, maybe, I don't know. There's a big boulder. When it sits up high, it's probably about 2 foot around and about 3.5 foot tall.
A couple thousand pounds.
Yeah,
probably a couple thousand pounds for sure. Somebody craned that thing in there. Did you put it in there, or did you inherit it when you bought the place?
We inherited it when it came in. Yeah, made of granite, and don't take it for granted. Yeah, there's a dad joke for you.
There you go. That's a solid one. That should make the list for sure. One of the things I find I don't check, like I should check my Ring cams every morning. I don't do that enough because there's some funny, like the neighborhood cat, frequently on our deck, like he owns the place. Right. Yeah. And it's just kind of hilarious to see. My wife said she saw a stray dog show up on the deck on the back cam. It's something I need to spend. I see myself. I always take in the mornings when I'm making the coffee, I always take the coffee out and toss I have a metal perk. And so I just toss the grounds out to the grass. And so I always see myself going to do that. But I need to spend a little. Do you find with Ring, you go back and look on a regular basis of what the camera's getting? Because I get so many notifications with packages being delivered and some of those kinds of things. I use it more in real time. I guess if it came in overnight, I don't know. I don't have a good system for that. Do you feel like you've got a good system to kind of keep track of it?
Yeah, I usually, if it's something overnight, I usually don't. And if, especially if we're all home, I don't. And if I walk outside and I notice something, then yeah, I'm going to go back and check it. Like if something was like missing or stolen or broken or something, I certainly would. If nobody's home and I do see an alert, usually I'll peek in then and just kind of see what's going on. And usually, like you said, it's the person dropping off a package from Amazon. But we actually have some wild animals that come through. We have these animals called javelina, and they come in packs. And sometimes you'll get about 13 of those guys, and like they're these wild pigs that come in and they're scurrying around for food, and they're strong. They knock down trash cans, and
do they
they
eat
go
the
through.
garbage? They make
They
a
eat
mess.
garbage.
Oh, yeah.
First year we were in the house, we made the mistake of putting pumpkins out. Like
Oh,
live pumpkins for
uh-huh.
Halloween. Never did that again.
They just
Yeah.
destroyed those things, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Probably
Yeah.
didn't take too long. My front door cam is in a spot to catch the moon as it's making its way, as it's
Oh,
traversing.
nice.
And so you can see we're in a pretty, it's a pretty thin profile, so you don't see a lot of it. But when that thing is full and it's traversing at night, you can see. What's your interval on Ring? It'll take a picture, or you can have it take a picture every certain number of minutes. Do you know what your interval is on those cameras?
I think I might have it set to best because the doorbell is hardwired, so it barely uses, I think, any juice at all.
Yeah.
As far as the battery, the others, the cameras that get more action, I put two batteries in those guys,
Okay.
and then the ones that get less action, I keep one, and then I always keep one battery, like on the charger, or not on the charger, but ready to go full.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that way, when I hot flip them real quick,
Swap them.
yeah.
I've got two that have the solar panels. Man, that is so slick with the Ring cam. It just works so well.
I don't know. We've talked about. I've been getting on the deal site to look it
Yeah,
up.
if you can go to Woot and get
Yeah.
set a deal alert or watch it in the Discord group, whatever. Regularly, they sell those things for $25. And
I just need to jump on it real quick.
yeah, it's super. Like the front, the driveway cam faces south, so I just put that right above the camera, and it gets sun even in the winter. It gets sun all day, and then the backyard cam, which is protected from the sun because it's it's a northern facing backyard. Everything in Nebraska is exactly north, south, or east and west. There's no we are on the grid, right?
Grid, yeah.
And so I put the solar panel up on the power pole. We have a long for the power for the house comes up, and I just strapped it to that one, and it gets sun all day. So yeah, it's pretty great. I'll be honest with you. I can't, if I'm gonna have to change batteries, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's just too much work, and it's not hard. But
it's not too bad.
I just, for me, I was like, I gotta do it in a way that kind of works for me. This is gonna seem kind of vain, but I need one more Ring cam because when I look at it, I have three, and so it doesn't make a nice box.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, I need a fourth one.
I'll tell you a neat place that we bought a Wisecam 3. One of the best things I did, I put it in the garage and I have it facing out to the garage door because I have a horrible habit of pulling out of the garage, leaving, and then I can't shake it. Did I close the garage or not? And I can't shake that feeling. And if nobody's home, I'm going back.
That would be smart. That'd be smart. Put a stick-up cam. The indoor one, stick-up cam, because those are pretty cheap.
Yep.
Put that in the garage. Plug it in. Make sure I get the ones that plug in, and plug it into the garage. Yeah, you're right. I think that's you talked me into it. I think that'll be. I'm gonna watch the Woot. I'm gonna watch Woot for that. I probably won't buy that full price, but
no, I think I landed a Wise for I want to say like $20 maybe.
Is Wise and Ring those not on the same? Those aren't working together, right? It's a different. They have a different.
Yeah, but the way I figure I use that one, it's not as much.
Right.
I mean, I guess it's good. It's obviously good for security too, but it's something that I'm just doing for that habit and that specific reason.
Yeah.
So I just on my rare occasion,
I had a Z Moto cam out in the garage. That was the pivot. And so it could turn, you could,
Oh yeah.
kind of thing. It kind of stopped working, but I kind of miss my garage cam. That was a good, it would always alert me too. And Sarah would come home. So it'd be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of hear it, but
Sure.
it's kind of nice to have that. And if, like you said, if you leave and you're like, did I really shut that? Do you have an automated garage door opener?
No, and that's the thing is I think if I got that, then I would probably not have to worry about it. But I was like, this is cheaper than even installing anything on my garage motor.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
even cheaper. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went that way.
Yeah. Well, that's it never ends, right? It never you think, oh, I could automate this thing. I'm spending, in the winter's coming, so I'm gonna spend some time out in the shed. Sundays maybe with a cigar. And one, I got to figure out how to heat it again this year because the heater that I was using last year got recalled. And then every time I'm out there, I'm like, I should just really run power out to this thing. Like it does, because I run an extension cord, but you're like, I should just trench this thing and, run power. And you're like, no, stop it, Jim. Stop it. You can take an extension cord out. You can do that. It's
like how much inconvenience versus the work of doing it. And,
yeah. Any other on the home automation side? Anything else besides that besides lights and cameras?
Not so much. We ended up putting little echoes throughout the house. I mean, it started with one, and then
oh yeah,
I mean they're so darn cheap. I mean they went everywhere. So we've got them every room in the house, and you're just programming some of them with the A name to activate, and some of them with the C word to activate. And that's good. I just have to be careful if I'm talking to somebody and I mention C word, then it's like, oh crap.
Well, and since the Amazon devices have started listening after, so you like I set a timer. If it's listening after you set the timer, and if you say anything, it tries to set another timer. And I'm like, no, stop! I'm not talking to you. And then I was doing one the other day. I was talking to somebody, and there was a delivery, and I said something, and then it was like, I don't understand. And then I think it was adding things to a shopping list, and eventually I had to mute myself talking to somebody at work and say, okay, enough. Stop.
Yeah.
Like, stop. Stop talking. It just had gotten out of hand. And so there is a little bit of that. Like, I know we complained for a while. It was only one command at a time, but man, this second command thing afterwards can go wrong.
Right. I was just looking in the chat. My wife just commented about the Ecobee. I bought one of those things. I can't remember which version number it was, but I bought one maybe about a year ago, and I tried to self-install it, and the darn thing, it would turn on, it would power on, it would connect with the Wi-Fi and talk to my phone and everything, but it wouldn't click the air conditioner part. It would put the fan on, but not click the air conditioning. And I installed it during the summertime. So not a fun day. So it's like, this isn't happening. And I took the whole thing down. I took and I rewired it again. Still the same problem. And I didn't know what was going on. So then I put my original unit back on, saying, oh gosh, I better be able to get it cold.
Yeah.
So I wired the original unit back on and got it was fine. Like just worked, the original unit worked as before, just one of those cheap Honeywell basic things. But for some reason, I tried twice, and the Ecobee that I bought wouldn't work. And so I did see that Amazon released a new one. I think it's cheap, like $65 or something. I think you might even get I think my electric company gives a rebate for the whole cost.
Yeah.
So I might just try it again to see
maybe
I had a bad unit.
Try in the winter.
Well, the problem is if I try in the winter, I wonder if I can even get it cold enough to.
Oh, true.
To hit to flip it to try the AC.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
We'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'll think about it. I like the concept of being able to automate with your air conditioner.
Yeah, that's something I've never really. That's my fear, is that I would go to install it and I would break something, and then because that's the story of my life. Like I do this, and then Sarah looks at me like, "You idiot! Like
It's fix it till it's broken.
doing?" And you're like, "I
Yeah.
don't," because it works perfect. Like we don't have any problems setting, and it's just always somebody here, and it just kind of works. And it's just like I'm solving for problems that don't exist. So I
Right.
got hold on. I got to know why 2 fresh lemons. What's the is there some significance between the handle of 2 fresh lemons?
I don't know if maybe she'll answer that one.
Okay. All right. Well, so if she wants to answer it, put it in chat, and we'll let her answer that one. Well, yeah. So I always start doing these things, and then I curse myself, and I always do them at times when I have no business starting them, and and you're like, oh, this was the wrong time. I should have done this hours ago or whatever, set a backup, whatever to it. So, it never, I just hate myself when I do those things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you idiot. Just leave it alone. It works fine. Fix it when it's broken. Don't stop upgrading when it works.
Right.
Type deal.
Oh.
Just wait for it to break.
Yeah. It's like when I changed the routers, it's like I don't pay for the highest speed internet. I didn't need necessarily to update my router.
Yeah.
But working from home, where I was home all the time, I was like, you know what? I've been hearing a lot of good things about these mesh routers, and so I did it, and then no problems. But I had to took down the system for a little bit, and telling all the devices what the Wi-Fi password is. And,
that's the worst part. All this reset up all the SSIDs, and then you find one a month or two later that like, oh, this hasn't been working for 2 months, the printer or whatever, right? Because we don't use printers anymore.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, what's my password? Like you've forgotten it by that point, so you got to go find it or look it up or whatever those kinds of things to get it done. It's just we did a show a while ago and just like how this home automation stuff is actually just terrible. Like it just creates more work for us, and there's probably a little bit of truth to that.
I was having a good conversation with a colleague of mine. He was telling me, his ex-wife hated all the home automation stuff and got so frustrated. I just want to turn something on and it won't turn on.
I know. And you're like, this should work.
No. Yeah. And then his new wife is kind of embracing it and loving this home automation. And it's not for everybody, but some of at least the plugs and stuff, I think you can manually go over there, and if you can reach it, you can click it. But
push the button that comes on. All of mine down here are that way.
Like a caveman.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's just you just I was doing something. Oh, it was Saturday, and I'd seen, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, I'd seen that the printer had gone offline, and I had done some changes, and I'm like, I should probably set that back up again. And I never did. So of course I'm right in the middle of something, and Sarah's like, hey, I'm trying to print something. And I'm like, oh, I should have fixed it. I should have fixed that thing when I was so mad at myself for not handling that. And I mentioned this the other day. I've got a motion sensor in the garage that turns on a mini light in the garage, just enough light that you can like do most things. But if I'm going to work in there, it's not going to be a working light. It's just a mini light.
It's like to navigate yourself.
Yeah, just to be safe. And then if I want, I've got a big I've got a big bright light in there if I want to turn that thing on. Well, that thing didn't work for, I don't know, about a month or two. And I was, it's like, I should probably fix this thing. I never did. One day I went out, it just came on. You're like, did it fix itself? Or like, why is this working now? And I did nothing. I literally did nothing. And it just started working again. So you're like, I don't know about this home automation stuff. I just,
a mind of its own sometimes.
It really does. Well, I'm impressed your wife was listening. Hopefully she approves of the conversation. And if you're listening live, thanks for coming out. We'll catch you guys next week. I think it's a catch-up show with Mike. And we'll see you guys next week. Brian, hang tight for me 1 second. We'll see you next Thursday. Take care.